Judang Tsoki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Daki Chenyen Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penshir Sange Drupar Sho Sange Chudang Tsoki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Daki Chenyen Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penshir Sange Drupar Sho Sange Chudang Tsoki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Daki Chenyen Gipe Sunam Ki Drola Penshir Sange Drupar Sho.
Okay, all of that work just to stop sharing now because we're actually going to begin with breakout rooms. I'll give you some context and some instructions. I know we haven't done these for the last few classes, so I wanted to give you a chance to connect, ask questions, and then come back and share. So we're going to do this till about 8:30, maybe a little after that, and then we should have enough time to go through the class content. And I also already mentioned ACI, or Asian Classics Institute, and I just want to remind everyone of what that is, because it can start to just become these three letters that we say, oh, as you heard in ACI class, but it always humbles me when I remember where this stuff really came from. So what we're studying in these courses, you can actually trace it in a line from student to teacher to student to teacher, all the way back to the Buddha. And this particular brand of Buddhism, if you will, is actually, for a long time, it was frozen on the Tibetan plateau, right? And it was actually yak herders that were encountering this wisdom and these teachings and putting them into practice. And the amazing thing about it sort of being frozen in place for, it was like 1,000 years or something, is that it kind of got to remain untouched by culture and migration and modernization in some ways. It kind of got to be really preserved in terms of what the Buddha spoke, or others heard him, or how he was transcribed or analyzed by his students. And so I think that's really special, and I think you'll feel that tonight, particularly with the text that we're studying. So I just want to situate us there. You are the modern day yak herders, who are trying. Zach's like, yes, finally, who've been presented with these teachings, these instructions that might feel foreign, right? Might feel like, oh, how do I fit this into my life? But there's some kernel in them that's magnetizing you to these classes, right? Otherwise, I don't think you'd keep showing up. Like, who needs another Zoom call? So there's something in them that's drawing you to them. And some of you I know have heard the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, or the pen thing, the karma thing, so many times. And you can still let it land softly in your heart. You can still feel something from it. So I'll just ask you to connect with that. Remember where these things are coming from. And we're going to do in our breakout rooms a review of where we ended last class, which is the thing that actually turns all those teachings on, right? It doesn't matter how holy or ancient or pristine some teaching is, if there's not a teacher there to turn it on for you, right? Otherwise, all these texts exist. We should be able to Google them or find them in a library, read them, and then boing, all of a sudden you're enlightened. So we talked last class, we ended with the 10 qualities of a teacher, and how a relationship with the teacher is the essential starting point for any spiritual path. And so what I'm going to ask you to do in your breakout rooms, I didn't have time to make a slide, so just try to catch these things. Number one, in your group, review why is the teacher so important? and don't try to remember the right answer. Really speak from the heart. Why? You probably have some memories of teachers from school. Why did they leave a lasting impression on your mind? Thank you, Sachi and John Chris. Incredible. That's number one. Number two, what of the 10 qualities can you remember and did you connect with? I don't want you to use your notes or have the list memorized. I want you to be like, oh yeah, remember that quality of the teacher? That's cool. I'm looking for something like that. So the ones that spoke to your heart of those 10. And then the next part is as candidly as you can with each other. And I know you all are pretty open with each other. What qualities out of the list do you feel like you already embody? And allow yourself to have a little bit of joy about that. Celebrate that. And on the flip side, which ones do you look at out of that list and you're like, gosh, I don't know how I could ever get there? Right? As openly as you can. That's the third step. And the fourth one is game plan. What is your game plan for becoming a teacher that embodies all those 10 qualities and more? What would you need to do for real in your life? I don't want hypothetical situations. And then hopefully we can come back together and share maybe just the one, like pick one so we can kind of stay focused. Pick one little anecdote or story that you'd like to share out of those things. Are those instructions clear? And thanks to Sachi and John Chris who put them in the chat. Right, hopefully this is exciting because if you heard what we said last class, it's that you'll never find someone out there in your world with those 10 qualities. They're not just going to magically appear. The only way they will appear is if you can start to recognize those qualities in yourself, show your mind that you think that they're important, and then through your awareness, through what you say, think, and do, start to create the causes for that to materialize. Right? If it worked any other way, then there would just be like one spiritual teacher in the world and everyone would be able to go receive a teaching from them and have a beautiful heart lama relationship. Like for real, it should work that way. Otherwise, if spiritual teachings come from the teacher rather than my experience of the world is what creates my teacher. So I'm going to stop blabbing so that you have at least 20 minutes in your groups and we'll have like 10 minutes to share and then we'll get into content. Yeah? Breakout rooms. Let's see. How many do we have? Oh, 50. Beautiful. So we'll do 5. Or is that too big of? Maybe I'll do 10 so you have little intimate groups. Okay, enjoy. And I'm just going to let you all, you can just enter the breakout room that you were assigned into for this one. For those students who usually stick around, I think we'll be okay. We'll be evenly distributed. Okay, see you soon. Oh, wow, sorry, I didn't click open all rooms. You good, Sam? I can't hear you.
I got kicked out probably as you were.
Okay, I'm going to assign you to this first one they could use.
Thank you.
Someone, and I think Mackenzie's just in there twice. Zoom recording. We just heard from group 1. Thank you. Group 2.
I think we were group 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, group.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was
so we had an awesome group, beautiful, lovely people. I might be blabbering a little bit here, trying to kind of encapsulate a little bit of what everyone was chatting about.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of, what came up is some of the stuff that people felt they already embodied, in terms of, qualities of a great teacher, would be master of love, which I think is maybe number 9, and the joyful effort, number 5, and the aspirational ones that we thought were beautiful, lofty ideals that we hope to reach at some point were, I think this was already mentioned with group 1, number 10, never tire of teaching, which I believe it was Anthony kind of translated as, this beautiful form of patience. And I was thinking about the folks at 3 Jewels and how I came across these teachings during the pandemic. I'm Canadian, I don't live in New York. And it was through, sort of serendipity that I came across this online when I was looking for meditative stuff to get me through. And yeah, the joy and the love that the folks at 3 Jewels bring to this. This is another quality we were chatting about in terms of a great teacher, relating it to the day-to-day, being real, being hilarious. You guys make me laugh. You guys make me cry. Like when Hector gets joyful, like weeping about some of the teachings, people who, this came up in the chat as well, people who walk the talk. And the folks at 3 Jewels really do that, from what we all agreed. That's one of the beautiful things about this group. And then, like, a lot of stuff was discussed. Anthony was talking about your heart llama, which is something I hadn't heard of before, and how this is sort of something somebody you hope to find, somebody who you think of when you're deep in meditation, who really leads you. But they also, what I thought was a really beautiful idea was that you can look around eventually, and everyone you encounter can be your teacher in some way when you get to a certain mindset. So those were the things that really stuck out for me, and hopefully I'm not overlooking stuff in the group, but yeah, it was a really beautiful chat.
I love it. Thanks so much, Allegra. As you were speaking, it made me think of 3 Jewels as being like this incredible mirror. Like we're all going around looking for the best mirrors, right? Of like the one in which you'll see your reflection best or the way you want to. And then for me, until I found 3 Jewels and I was like, wow, this is, I mean, I didn't think of it as a mirror at first, right? I was just like, this is magic. This is amazing. Is this even real? But then the only thing that they would ever say or teach or harp on is that they were a mirror, that they were just a reflection of qualities in me. And so it's like the fact that we can do that over and over again, it's really special. Love it. Room 3, please. Diego and 2 girls. I like your name change.
Okay. I loved everyone in the group. There was a lot of talk regarding how a teacher can show up and tirelessly teach and share lovingly, and then adjust the teachings in whatever way is appropriate for the student. So we said it could be to a kid or in a corporate gig, and they will change their language and their teaching style for it to fit and land properly on the student. That's one of the things. There was a lot around that the qualities that you see in other people, those, there must be some seed in you that makes you appreciate those things. And therefore those things can be nurtured and they can grow and can embody those things ultimately. What else? That's it.
Yeah, nice. I love it. The chameleon nature of being a teacher. Thank you. Room 4. Small group.
So I'll share for room 4, and it was lovely discussion because most of us felt like the connection of teaching out of love and patient and repeating was very present with our teachers. All the qualities were present, but those came out for us. And then a few of us felt like we also had the same quality of being patient when we taught. And we talked about what we were lacking or what we felt like we wanted to develop, which was more confidence and feeling like we know enough, because a lot of us experience feeling like we don't know enough, and then we might not come across as grounded. I think that was more the groundedness was part my issue, that we get ungrounded in how our teachers feel like they're so solid in their knowledge, and yourself included, Supriya. We talked about how you come across as like, you got this, you know. And then we also talked about the fear of having a question we don't know how to answer, and the authenticity of just not being too serious, and having that joyful effort and lightness that like Hector had.
I love it. I'll just offer a nugget for those who are feeling teacher imposter syndrome of their own. Here's a trick my teacher gave me. You always need to be just one step ahead of the student. And like, I've so felt this in this course. All I need to know is one class's worth of content more than the one we're at now, right? When we were sharing class 5, I just knew, okay, I know class 5 and I know class 6. So I'm going to go with that. And that's it. That's how you start. You just need to be one step ahead. And actually, I love what you were saying, Elizabeth. I've had this experience real time of a student's question or even just their facial expression pulling out of me something I didn't know I had. I think that's one of the beautiful things about allowing yourself to step into the position of being a teacher, and and that doesn't mean, oh, let me get a class together and list it online and people are going to show up, so I am the teacher, right? How can you be the teacher in every conversation you're having, right? Or yeah, any interaction you're having, not in this hierarchy student teacher thing, but in the I am an image of love that will mirror you and want nothing but the best for you. And in its ultimate form, I don't want you to just get the job or the boyfriend or the thing we're talking about in that moment, right? But I want you to get that and much more. I want you to understand where the happiness that seems to come from all those things is actually coming from, so you can create it in an infinite, unbroken stream. I digress. Where are we? Room 5, right? Yeah. I think room 5.
We didn't decide who would talk, so
it's you.
The rest of the group can chime in. Our main theme, we talked a lot about love between the teacher's love for the student and the student's love and admiration for the teacher. Kind of reiterating what some of the other groups said around like creating a trusting and safe relationship, teaching to the capacity of the student, like being able to adjust. The other thing we spent some time on that I haven't heard come up yet was that one thing that we struggle with, or at least I struggle with, around loving the material so much that you want to like share all of it, and having to practice like restraint and being kind of deliberate in when you share and how and what you share, and that being a skill to develop.
Which quality are you correlating that with, Kelly? Of the 10, or is this something else?
I think the one around teaching to I don't know if they use the word capacity, or like the teaching to like the way the student would best learn.
Got it. Okay.
I also think it comes up a lot in our Bodhisattva vows of like, not sharing emptiness. I forget exactly what the wording of the vow is, but that's one I struggle with.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. I hope you also, we won't necessarily have time to go over it all together, but I hope you also had time in your group to talk about how to shift that, how to shift to the fact that you see yourself right now as having that limitation, if you do, right? Because that's also caused. It's also a karma in your mind that's flowering for you to see yourself that way, right? Have you ever had that experience where you're talking to someone and you realize like, wow, they really see me in a certain way? It's like what Elizabeth was just doing to me. And I was like, wow, I wish I could see myself in that light. It's very obvious that the way we regard ourselves is different than the way your mom sees you, or your friend sees you, or your ex-lover sees you, or a stranger sees you. So if that's true, if there's enough wiggle room between all those things, why can't you transform the way you see yourself? That little voice in your head and the attitude it has, why can't that transform? Why couldn't you see yourself as the perfect teacher at all times? So I hope that like groups got a little bit closer to there in terms of what would I need to do to get to that point? Otherwise, it'll kind of come tonight in class as well. Okay, we're at room 6, Danielle and Hannibal's room.
Hi, I was in room 6 and we had a really lovely group of people, and it seemed like we all really connected with having joyful effort. Everyone was happy to be of service and found satisfaction in helping and giving to others. So that was one that we all pretty easily, I think, connected with. Also being motivated by love. So that was really cool. We also had an actual Montessori school teacher in our group, which was really cool to get the perspective of being like a practicing teacher and being a guide for young minds. And yeah, we've really felt like we could use a lot of practice in all of the other qualities, basically. Overcoming distaste and scripture in particular.
Nice. Well, I hope you know, at least from the scripture side, there are pages and pages of notes and readings associated with all the stuff that we're going through. They're on Thinkific, but if you're that type of mind who needs that, you know, something to sink your teeth into, it exists. It's there. I'll ask if you wouldn't mind muting if you're not speaking, and let's move on for time's sake to room 8. Yeah. Ali, Kamaya, Lynn?
You skipped us.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Wow, I'm going room 7. Sorry. Oh, was it just a duo in room 7?
No, it was Mackenzie.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay, hi. I guess I'll talk. We had Melissa, Chauncey, and Mackenzie and myself, and we talked about some interesting points that came up were like people in our life who end up teaching us by showing us the things we don't like in them, like people that frustrate us. And we were talking about how to maybe potentially shift our perception of those people, and like this fine line between like having an open heart towards a person that you don't really like so much, and also being honest with yourself about it and not like pretending to like them, because that's just sowing seeds of fakeness.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting point that we came across. And in terms of the list, I talked about joyful effort, and we talked about being an embodiment of love. And
nice. It seems like those are everyone's favorites tonight. No one was talking about the capacity to meditate or see emptiness directly or have ethics, all, I mean, implied and all related, but it's beautiful that those things kept coming up. Sorry to have skipped you. Thanks for sharing, David. Now room 8.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so we had a small group. It was me and Kamaya and Lynn, and it felt like a catch up with old friends because we all did meditation teacher training together, and we hadn't seen each other in a week and a few days. So
lifetime.
Yeah, I know, it was a long time. So we got to talking a little bit about calling in a teacher in our meditation practices, and in terms of that, can we use a teacher that we may not know in real life, and how effective is it to use an author, someone from scripture, or a historical figure. And I thought that that was really interesting. And then from the list, I shared that I feel most comfortable with the aspect of feeling like I never get tired of teaching. It always excites me, and I'm always excited to share any small nugget of wisdom that I may have come across. And then there was one other thing. Oh, and then we talked about, sort of similar to what David just said, about just seeing everyone as a teacher, and especially in the things that feel really frustrating or hurtful, and using that as an opportunity to just cultivate more compassion and empathy for others. Yeah, that's it.
I love it. I love that first thing you said about, can I work with someone who I don't know? And absolutely you can. Here's the proof. Have you ever had an experience of someone who you thought you knew, and then something happened in a flash, in a moment, you saw something else in them that wasn't there before, but now you couldn't unsee them in that way? Right? Or it could be someone you really admire. You found out something about the way they lead their lives or conduct their world, and they came crashing down in your mind, or vice versa, right? Haven't we had those experiences? That's proof that there's something in me that is projecting onto them. If they had that quality in and of themselves, everyone, first of all, everyone would see them that way, and they wouldn't be able to change over time like that. So the fact that it's like, that's a little, like, hopefully nugget of proof for yourself that yes, you can absolutely work with people you don't know. Haven't you ever had someone you don't know and then you feel like they're your best friend? Where does that come from? That comes from you. It comes from just a seed flipping open. So absolutely you can do that. Okay, we're down to our last two groups, room 9 and 10.
To continue the thread, one of the first discussions we had in our group was, does it have to be a Buddhist Lama? Who is the teacher? Sydney asked that. That was really, I think, a great question, and really opened up the discussion in our group. Leah and Gabriel were also there and shared very helpful insights. Leah shared that one of her teachers framed the teacher as like, who gets you jazzed? And even that word jazzed like brings something different to mind of maybe how you relate to a teacher. And then Gabriel also talked about how, it's about ultimately being able to see not just people as teachers and everyone as a teacher, but like everything as a teaching as well. And that's like another way of thinking about who the teacher is, and like where it's actually coming from. It's coming from us. Do I have more to share? Okay, yeah. So I think that was an interesting question and discussion, especially I think Sydney talked about like, how do we translate this to others who may not be looking for a Buddhist Lama?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I love it. And I like how everyone's making the jump from I need to connect with my teacher to I need to see everyone as a teacher, or everything as a teaching. Just be careful with that jump. It's possible, but I would say you have to start with the first step. Like, you have to have someone who you believe and trust and have proven to you over and over again that it's possible to do that, right? Otherwise, if you don't have that level of confidence, then well, why not just believe the next person that comes along and says that they have this really great ancient book and they're going to teach you from it? So what's the thing that, and I that's probably what Anthony touched on in terms of the heart Lama. I love thinking about that, is what's the thread in the tapestry of my spiritual path that if I pulled that thread out, everything else would disintegrate. But as long as that thread is there, anything can be woven into it. Anything can make sense and have meaning. So I just wanted to add that caveat, but I love it. Yes, there is that level of practice where everything is a teaching and everyone is a teacher, but you can't force it, right? You're not in the moment being screamed at or being hurt and forcing yourself to think of it as, this is my teacher. Okay, last group.
I'm not sure that we picked a person, so I can go.
Nice. Thank you.
Because it actually, I think, loops back, closes this really nicely. So we kind of deep dove into why we thought the teacher was so important. This is before Javier joined, and I mentioned that in a second because we spoke about kind of our own personal reasons as to why we think the teacher is so important. We talked about that the teacher is someone there to keep you on track, to recognize the patterns that you might be putting yourself into and to help you break out of them. There's a level of accountability for having a teacher there, to keep you accountable. And then also a person that mirrors or echoes the things that you might have done right, and acts as like a source of positive reinforcement. And then Javier joined, and then he added the technical by the book definition of why a teacher is important, which is effectively to reduce the misinterpretation or an incorrect translation, and to provide and to be the source of to be the accurate source of the teachings. So kind of similar to a point of like, yes, everyone can definitely be a teacher of something, but to study the Dharma correctly, to study the text correctly, to understand what is effectively an accurate depiction of what the Buddha is intending for you to learn, having that teacher that translates the accuracy of the teachings is incredibly important. And then kind of related, the quality we kind of all talked about at length was just a master of instruction. Even if people who are saying the same words can be saying the same words, it takes a different type of relationship between a student and a teacher that solidifies that kind of relationship. Multiple people in our group had multiple teachers, and they all landed at the teacher they landed with because there was a certain type of way that the teacher was able to explain to the point where it really resonated with them. Even though the words were the same, the intentions or the connection was very different. So yeah, that was our group. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody.
It's beautifully put. You all summoned the magnificent Javier with your conversation. I love it. Thank you all for playing. I hope it was nice to connect with each other. I know we haven't done breakout rooms in a while. So thanks for doing that. It's important to hear yourself say these words. It's okay if it feels weird and awkward. It still feels like that for me, but it's so important. And then to be there for each other. So thank you. We'll have the rest of class on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So let's get into it. Share screen. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you a little backstory on where this text comes from, so you know that where it comes from. Okay, so setting, we're in Nalanda Monastery, which is a famed ancient monastery. You can think of it as like the Ivy League of Tibetan Buddhist monasteries. And there's a monk there who has the nickname Mr. Three Thoughts. So this was something that people used to ridicule him. They said, you just have three thoughts. All you can think about is eating, sleeping, and pooing. Mr. Three Thoughts. Like that's all you're good for, kind of thing. So that's the setting. And it comes a time, I don't exactly remember why, but basically it might have almost been like a prank situation where basically he was asked to give a teaching to the monastery. They wanted to, see how far you could fall. Mr. Three Thoughts. So they created this throne and everything. The monastery gathered and they invited him to give a teaching. The text that we're studying, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, is what he ended up sharing, sitting there. He's called Mr. Three Thoughts, and later on, we now refer to him as Master Shantideva. If you've been to an ACI class before, you recognize that name. And the idea is he gave this incredible teaching that synthesized all these different aspects of what the Buddha had been teaching and sequenced them and created order between the steps and basically created this instruction manual for anyone to become a bodhisattva and live their life in that way. Hence the guide to the bodhisattva's way of life. And far from falling from grace, it actually, the story goes that as he was doing this teaching on the throne, he actually began to levitate into the air. Lesson being, there were only a few that could levitate with him, who had the karma to keep hearing the teachings. Like as the chapters progress, there's 10 chapters in total. Some of the last parts, people had to be like, did you hear that? Where did he go? Because they didn't have the karma, the forced experience of being able to stay, right? And I think of that all the time, of like when I'm listening to something and my Wi-Fi drops out, or my kitchen cupboard yanks my headphones. I'm still old school and use the like non-AirPod headphones, but I have that rupture, right? In being able to hear the teachings. What is that? It's my karma running out, my karma to hear this stuff running out. So I just wanted to tell that little story. That's where this stuff comes from. So it's called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Master Shantideva around 700 AD. And here's the table of contents. So 10 chapters. Tonight and Thursday as well, we're really going to be focusing on the first 3 chapters. The benefits of the wish, we'll talk about what that is, purifying bad deeds, Sydney, that's what I was talking about with purification, and how to acquire the wish, and what's the relationship between those 3 things. But one thing I wanted to point out to you all, because it's really fun when you see it, is there are 6 chapters within this text that correspond perfectly to the 6 perfections. At this point, I hope you've heard the 6 perfections before, right? We've talked in good length about them, and we're going to cover them in detail next class finally. But just so you know, here they are. So the perfection number 2, or ethics, is guarding awareness, chapter 5. And for those meditators, yes, that's sheshin. That's that watchfulness that you have in your mind, right? The alarm bell, the guard that's out for watching when your mind is wandering. And then it goes on. But one thing I'll ask you all, if someone wants to chime in, why are all of them not in order? Why is the first perfection, which if you can remember is the perfection of giving, why does it come last? Why is that chapter 10? Just unmute yourself if you want to take a gander.
Because if you give without wisdom, then it's essentially not really doing anything for you.
Boom. Yeah, or put another way, the thought process of the author here is, it was essentially, the best thing I could give away, the only thing worth giving away is actually all the effort I put into compiling this work, all the 9 chapters before it. And to Mackenzie's point, if the thing you're giving away doesn't have wisdom embedded into it, it's not going to work. Your gift is going to run out. We're going to talk about why over and over again tonight, but here's the first time. What is wisdom? Code word. It's already come up a little bit, but I just want to remind ourselves we're swimming in it all the time. It applies to every single object around you right now, including the way you think about yourself and feel about yourself. Wisdom is saying that none of those things are fixed. None of those things have power in and of themselves. It is not saying they're not real. It's saying the thing that makes them real is something in your own mind. It's something that was planted there, probably unknowing, and bloomed into this experience. That's called karma, the way your mind moves and what follows from that. And what emptiness is the lack of an inherent nature to anything. Or put another way, the lack of a self-existence. By itself, the thing could not exist. If all minds left this Zoom call and then this room and that object was just sitting there by itself, what would it be then? You just have to investigate it to get to the point where it wouldn't exist the way I think of it. Things actually exist only upon my mind meeting them and something in my mind moving to meet them. We're going to get to this over and over again, but yes, Mackenzie, to your point, without that understanding, anything that you give is going to run out. You think the power of your gift is in the gift itself, it's going to run out. But you spend 9 chapters on how to reach wisdom, all the causes you need to collect wisdom, or all the things you need to purify that are holding you back from wisdom, then that's something that's worth giving. So the last perfection actually comes at the end, and it's chapter 10. This is just a little fun fact about Bodhisattva Charyavatara that I like. Okay, so what does this have to do with the wish?
Priya, can I ask a question on that?
Sure, I can't promise I'll answer it because of time, but go for it. Except that you're muted and my karma to hear you has run out.
Sorry. So one of the things that I remember talking to some people about with Three Jewels is that all of our classes, you know, yoga, meditation, dharma, all these classes, we always dedicate at the end to like our practice and our efforts to other people. But I don't know if for, you know, if sometimes my dedication has the complete, it's like contains the wisdom that I need. Like I'm just dedicating, you know, this felt really good and I want this good feeling to reach other people who may not be feeling good. Like it may not carry while I'm trying to figure out this wisdom piece, like I don't think that my dedication has the full like comprehensive wisdom in it. So then are those dedications like not worth it or like not effective or not doing anything based on what we were just talking about with the wisdom understanding? You know, dedication only works and matters if it has wisdom.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you to sit on it for like 25 minutes. If I play my cards right, it's exactly the last few parts of this class. We're gonna talk about dedication. And know that when I say that without wisdom, things don't matter, they will have an effect. Right? Every goodness you've ever done, regardless of whether it was self-centered or whether it was out of habit or whether it's because your teacher told you so, it will have an effect. Like produces like. What we're talking about here is how can the result be something beyond normal, beyond ordinary, right? And not just kindness producing more kindness, but kindness producing freedom from death itself. Freedom from every pain and suffering. How do I supercharge that? That would be what wisdom can do. And it's beautiful that you ask it because you're basically asking, you know, what makes giving something away? What makes thinking of other people powerful? We're going to start with why bother thinking that way? Right? What you're talking about is this mindset of the wish. The wish is short form. Long form is the wish to get enlightened for the sake of all beings. The wish to figure out this wisdom and karma and emptiness thing, not so that just you can get enlightened, but actually so that you can see other people in your world being free from suffering, because you recognize they're in the same boat. So the first thing they do is like, look, don't just believe, like that sounds nice, right? It sounds like an exalted, noble way to live. I have the wish. But they start with, here are the benefits of actually cultivating that type of mind. And there are 5. Yes, there are 5. They're metaphors. And I love them. I think they're so beautiful. You can connect with whichever ones you connect with. The first one, metaphor for the wish and the benefit it would give you to think of all beings in every action you do, is that it acts like an alchemical elixir. So the idea here is it changes the inferior body, AKA the body that gets sick and old and dies, no matter how much you take care of it, no matter how much you invest in it, no matter what doctors you have, changes that inferior body into the supreme body of a Buddha. So you might be asking here, I wonder if she's being hypothetical or literal, to which I'll say yes. Take it as you will. But the idea is that this wish and nothing else is the thing that would transform aging, sickness, and death itself. That's what we mean when we say suffering. It's not a bad day. It could transform that experience into a body that is functioning in a completely different way. Just because you call this body human doesn't make it human. Go up to a hungry animal. It's not going to go through the thought process of, oh, there's a human, there's its arm. That looks like a nice place to chomp on. No. We're forced to experience it as human, and we can change the things that are doing the forcing. So that's the first one. The second one, one of the wish is like a precious jewel. It's difficult to find, and it can clear away the poverty of all living kind. I really like this one. The point here being, it's so relevant. I was actually, another story for another time, but it was really cool. My last work assignment, this is what I was doing this morning, was essentially like creating a data-driven case study on the perfection of giving. It wasn't presented in that way. Like I don't, but in my mind, I was like, whoa, I finally did it. I finally got an assignment about the power of giving. And the story here was about, if anyone knows, Mackenzie Scott, who's Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. She very quietly, or as quietly as a billionaire could, gave away $4.2 billion of her personal worth in the last 4 months to over 400 different organizations. And the point, we were kind of covering this as like a class act that contrasts so much of charitable giving as an investment strategy, or as a beat my chest, look at me, how special am I kind of strategy. And it made me think, because as I was doing research for the piece, the first thing I found is that all the wealth, all the abundance and means that we need to eradicate poverty on planet Earth already exists. We have all the funds we need. So why has no one figured this out yet? Why has no one solved it? Will it happen if we just reallocate all those funds perfectly? The point here is saying it's actually, and this was the beautiful piece about, as I was working on this case study, I was sort of thinking about, oh, well, maybe Mackenzie Scott has this seed for being a bodhisattva in her mind because of the attitude, the mindset through which she's doing giving. Because that's what this is saying. It's saying the wish in someone's mind is the thing that can eradicate poverty in the whole world. The way you give, doesn't matter how much you give, but it's, are you giving with the expectation of return, or are you giving understanding the emptiness, the lack of a nature of what you're giving, who you're giving it to? I have to move faster, but I wanted to share that little nugget. The wish is a precious jewel. The wish is an evergreen tree. If you've ever done the 3 Jewels meditation on love, we explore this idea of what is that infinite resource that as you give it away, it does not diminish. It's renewable, rechargeable, whatever word that is, but it actually grows as you give it away. That's the wish. It's that mindset. I guess opposite of a scarcity mindset. Then for those looking for a bit of ferocity, the wish, a metaphor for it is the great warrior. This is the great warrior on the battlefront of your mind. That state of mind, if you go around always thinking about other people, looking out for other people and what they need, what they want, you will kill fear, anger, selfishness, laziness in your own mind. And that way, it's a great warrior. And then this last one, the great fire, this is related to, remember the time class where we talked about this, the creation and the ending of worlds. And they say at the end of every eon, there's a big fire that wipes everything out. And that's a metaphor for what the wish can do to the bad deeds in our own mind. To this latent seeds that are there that we planted without knowing about karma and emptiness. I here always think, I hope this isn't like too gory, and I hope all kids did this, but I have this like distinct memory of being on the playground and using little twigs to dissect those furry caterpillars, You know, those like black and green ones. Is that, I hope that's not terrible, but like that was definitely a thing I did with my friends. And so I actually think of this and many more here, but the idea is just a moment of truly having the wish in my mind could wipe out any negativity, any bad deed. The ultimate purification. Okay. Why? This is important. Don't just take them because I'm saying it, because Master Shantideva is saying it. Little setup here. I don't know if any, we use these charts at work a lot. Basically, all you need to think about is you have two axes, right? You have your x-axis, your y-axis. I promise this is just like a little nerd detour, and then we'll keep going. But we use this at work a lot, right? Of you have some variable on the horizontal, some variable on the vertical. And if you're ever advising, you know, a brand or a client, you want to get them to be in this top right corner. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, cool. You want them to be over here, right? Let's say it's the time that users spend on your product on the horizontal and the engagement that they get out of it, or the reward that they get out of it. You're always going to try to get someone to shoot top right corner. That's the goal. So when I heard this concept, this is what I thought about, because the question here is why, the answer to the why question, why bother with the wish, is that it is, if you could extend these axes into infinity, horizontal to infinity, vertical to infinity, that top right corner is where the wish belongs. And here's how you do it. On the x-axis, you put the highest state of being that you could achieve. Right? Imagine that axis is all the states of being that you could achieve. You can argue, right, that you're a little more evolved now than when you were 3 years old. You have a slightly higher state of being. Or you could argue that you have a higher state of being than a dog because of the way you're able to interact and perceive the world. What if you stretch that axis out to infinity? And then on the y-axis, you had this question of how many numbers of beings do I want to help? Right? Maybe you want to be down here. You just want to help your immediate, so like your loved ones, the people you know. Or maybe you want to go into the people you don't know, the anonymous faces. Or maybe you want to think of every conceivable being that your mind could perceive. If you go to the top, absolute top right corner, the highest state of being in order to help the maximum number of people, of beings, sorry, that would be where you place bodhicitta, or the wish to get enlightened for the sake of all beings. I hope that added up. Do you see what okay, cool. I'm seeing some nods. So it's the combination of the two highest causes, and that must have a result, right? Why are we talking about this? If I take the two highest causes, collide them, the result is that my entire world, without exception, will be completely and totally pure. I know pure is a loaded word. Think magical, paradise, complete ecstasy from every experience, right? That would be the result. So that would be the why bother? And remember, we're in chapter 1 talking about, okay, before you get into this whole text and all the things you have to do to be a bodhisattva, the definition of a bodhisattva is someone who has the wish in their mind, someone who has bodhicitta, the wish to get enlightened for the sake of all beings. So you better feel like that thing is like is worth, right, pursuing. That's why there's a whole chapter on the benefits of the wish. Now we move to chapter 2, which is basically, I heard it in some of your answers, right? There's acknowledging that in order to get what you want, you can go out there, identify it, and get it, and or you can remove all the obstacles you have to getting it, right? That's another strategy. Remove the things that are blocking you. That's purification. And that's the ultimate purification. So yes, we should purify getting cheated on, or being broke, or not having a great professional experience, or living in a world that disproportionately cares for different parts of society. Totally, we should purify that stuff. What's the ultimate thing to purify that would actually change all those things? Let me purify in my mind the obstacles to having this wish. That's what Master Shantideva is saying. So what comes here? Okay, a little bit about purification. And hopefully those who took Javier's course, we really did a deep dive into this. So this should start to feel familiar, but it starts with the preliminaries for purification. So what do you have to do even before you begin a purification practice? And they say do prostrations, which, to give a little context there, think of prostrations as this thing that we do, right? It can be ritual. It can be this thing that you're like, cool, look, I'm doing this. This must make me really Tibetan Buddhist. And like, you know, you could have a whole trip on what you think you're doing versus can you connect with the actual invitation of, is there something worthy to bow down to in your world or in your mind? What would that thing be? And would you lay yourself on the ground for it? So doing prostrations, taking refuge, and making offerings, all of these are in relation to the 3 jewels. And it's also coded. I'm going to just review them quickly because all these words mean things and they come in different ACIs. But here, when I'm talking about the 3 jewels, I'm not talking about at 3 jewels NYC on Instagram, right? I'm not talking about that physical expression of it in New York City or now in this digital realm. The 3 jewels is the concept of emptiness applied to 3 very specific things. So the first one is the emptiness of the Buddha jewel. It's actually everything we talked about. It's the emptiness of the teacher. The fact that teachers don't exist self-existently from their own side. Buddhas don't exist that way. And actually, there's something in your mind right now that is the same as in every Buddha's mind. It's called your Buddha nature. It's not a tiny Buddha in you. It's the capacity of your mind to transform. I would bow down to that. I would make offerings to that. I would take refuge or seek protection in, put my hopes on that thing. That's the emptiness of the Buddha jewel, first one. Emptiness of the Dharma jewel. That's the emptiness of the teachings, right? It's the reason that sometimes you show up to these classes and you're like, wow, this is the bee's knees. This is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And sometimes you're like, oh, great, I've heard this list before. Here we go again, right? Or it's the fact that you can't just read a reading and get the insight. It's not coming from the reading. It's not coming from the teachings. The emptiness of those. And then the last one is the emptiness of the Sangha jewel, which can mean a few things. On one hand, we're all a Sangha, right? The people who come together, and you can use words like karma and emptiness and purification around them and they won't run away, right? You can connect with them on that level. But on a deeper level, the Sangha jewel are people that have had an experience of emptiness for real. They've studied, they've heard the pen thing 30,000 or 3,000, one of those times. And they've actually in meditation had a direct experience of it. The fact that those people exist in your world, that's worth bowing down to. That's worth making offerings to. So the point is, before you purify, what would this do to your mind, right? And the way I think about this is it would keep me from just pursuing worldly goals. Right? It's the difference between me getting on my cushion in the morning and being like, okay, wow, I have a packed day today. It's meeting after meeting. I want to sit here. I'm going to just activate my parasympathetic. I need to calm down a little bit. Beautiful goal, but worldly goal, right? There's no amount of calm work days that are going to really, truly make me happy or make me fulfilled. So what instead I do is I try to amp up that motivation. What if as I sat here and then sure, it's going to have all those worldly effects. I'll have a great day at work. But for real, what if I could develop the stability of mind to turn every single thing in my workday? So when I get an assignment about Mackenzie Scott and her charitable giving, I could think, whoa, maybe this is an analysis of the perfection of giving. So that's the way I think about this with purification too. We're not just purifying the little stuff, the small potatoes, we're purifying the thing that's blocking us from complete and total perfect happiness. And the one that we want to pay the most attention to, this is actually step 1 of all purifications, is the foundation of refuge. So think about refuge as the certainty that you have when you open your umbrella on a rainy day. You have certainty that it's going to protect you from the downpour. the equivalent of that in your mind is doing the ultimate act of truth, which is checking in with your understanding of emptiness. Why? Right? This is to JJ's question. Why is it that emptiness makes things work? Here's why. When I don't see things as empty of a nature from their own side, I relate to them in a certain way, either out of habit or out of spite or out of jealousy or out of all sorts of things, but it puts a chain reaction into motion. And that cycle of reactivity is no different than the cycle, that image that we saw of the wheel that's caught in the grips of the Lord of Death, that's just spinning around. Samsara. We create mini samsaras every time we don't see the emptiness of everything around us. And on the converse, when we do see it, you react in a different way. You cut the cycle of responding and you move into a cycle of reacting, because you do have that choice. You have the karma to see yourself have that choice. So that's why there's that foundation of refuge. And I know I'm moving at warp speed, but I'm going to keep going. That's the first force. They say it takes that. I like that it's called the 4 forces of purification. It's not an easy thing, but it's on that basis of refuge. It's like when you fall down, you need to press against a floor to get up, right? That's your foundation. It's just ironic that the floor you're pressing against, the solid thing you're pressing against, is the fact that nothing has a solid nature of its own from its own side. That act will protect you regardless of what situation you find yourself in. If it's a situation that didn't turn out so well, that you want to purify, you didn't show up as the person you wanted to be, here's what you can do. First, you recognize that that experience is empty of a nature. Second, you actually cultivate some intelligent regret. This is not a time for guilt or shame. This is just, I planted a seed in my mind. Seeds grow into things that are like that seed. Like produces like, and it's going to be bigger. And I'm going to have to eat that later. So you develop a sense of regret. The third one's actually the most important part. It's because of those first 2 things, you can actually, it's like the ultimate hack. You actually can stop yourself from doing that again. Because that's ultimately how you break a bad habit. You stop it. Right? But that's step 3 here. You restrain yourself for however long you can from sending the angry email, thinking the jealous thought. And then number 4, this is what we were talking about at the start of class. You think of a remedy, you think of an antidote. And please also remember to ground that in your understanding of emptiness, right? This isn't like a tit for tat game. This isn't, let me take out my karmic calculator and this thing happened to me, so what do I need to do to balance it out? That's a game you can play, but it's not the ultimate game. It's not the thing that would get you out of all the calculating and the mess of samsara. There's something beyond that. And that would be if the remedy actually is infused with the wish. So you do the opposite to someone, whatever it is you don't want anymore. You make sure someone else doesn't have to go through it. You can think about it that way. But as they're going through it, if you're like, oh, I don't want you to be caught in a cycle of self-hate anymore either. In your mind, you're also amping it up with the wish, right? Because we talked about all the benefits of the wish. You're saying if they didn't have self-hate in their mind anymore, they would be closer to their own enlightenment. Is there anything else here? Okay, here's another why. Like, again, don't do these 4 things to purify just because I'm saying it or Master Shantideva is saying it. The reasons here are that ultimately, fundamentally, we don't understand the law of actions and their consequences, or the laws of karma. And the way I think about this one is like, I think I actually do understand the laws of karma when they work in my favor, right? Like even before I encountered Buddhism, I had this idea of like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do things and then things will happen. That's how you go through life. So I'm going to go through life doing all the right things, accumulating all the things I need to, and then things will happen. I just didn't have a full picture, right? That it's not just the karmas that you want to blossom. Those aren't the only ones that are going to blossom. It's absolutely everything that I think, say, do, witness without saying anything, all those things, the things I do when I'm alone, the things I do when I'm in front of other people, hoping that other people will notice, all of it will have a result. So because we're not always aware of that, that's one reason to purify. Second one, I love this, because we're unable to follow the little that we do understand. Right? So this would be that feeling of, oh yeah, I know. I show up to Tuesday and Thursday evenings, like saying all this stuff about how things are empty of a nature, but I still go home and waste my time scrolling versus scrolling through something useless versus scrolling through something imbued with wisdom. Right? Until I can actually follow through on this stuff, that there's a reason to purify. And then this is the one that gets back to what we're talking about, right? It's this idea that there are things in my mind that are actually blocking me from having the wish all the time. There's obstacles to feeling that way, like feeling unconditional love for other people. So that's a reason to purify. It's not just so that my life gets better, let me purify a bunch of stuff. It's so that my mind can reach its highest state for the most number of people. Okay, well, the last thing before we get to your question, JJ. So where are we? I think we're now in chapter 3. Yes, because we did chapter 1, benefits of the wish. Chapter 2, all the things that could keep us from the benefits of the wish, right? The things to purify. And then this third part is, great, you've got those things down. You need to add the water and the sunlight and the all natural fertilizer, the compost. That's rejoicing, right? And they start with these 3 chapters before they go into all the 6 perfections. So rejoicing is a fancy word for being happy about. They say these specific things. You'll notice all of these are like things you do as well as things that others do. So you get to reap 10% of the karma of someone else if you rejoice for them. So that's pretty cool. Just keep that in mind. The first thing they say to rejoice in is your and others' virtuous deeds that'll get you to higher births, higher rebirths. That's mainly anytime you avoid the 10 non-virtues. Anytime you were going to grab that egg from the fridge, which is your roommates, and you know they weren't going to notice, but you stop yourself. You don't steal. You don't lie. You don't be happy when other people don't get the thing they want. Anytime you do that, that's cause to rejoice. If you do it or others. Then the second one is things you do or others do that will get you to nirvana. Nirvana is, and sorry, if we had more time, I would like have someone unmute. I know many of you know what nirvana is, but here's the short definition. It's the permanent cessation, the permanent end of any negativity in your mind, any mental affliction in your mind. So anything that you do to remove mental afflictions, that might be a 4 forces practice. It might be in meditation. It's very hard to have a mental affliction when you're in a deep state of meditation. Ultimately, the only way to really battle all of those negativities in your mind is to see emptiness directly. For a couple of reasons. One, when you're in that experience, it's actually impossible to have another thought. They say when you're in that experience, you can't even have the thought of, oh, cool, I'm finally seeing emptiness directly. All those things that they talked about on those Dharma classes, it's happening to me. You can't even have that thought, let alone a negative thought. But more than that, if you can really, for just a second, see the lack of nature in absolutely everything, you will be overcome with a need to take care of your mind and your world. There's no other way you could engage with the world. You'd have full certainty that a tiny negativity that you do now is going to boomerang and come back to you in the future. So that's ultimately the one you rejoice in. The third one, any bodhisattva activity. So here you can think any vowed activity, any activity of those people you see out in the world that they're not always looking down at their shoes. They're looking up and looking into the eyes of people and being like, what do you need? Who live their life for the sake of others and not just themselves. You can rejoice when you do that or anyone you see doing that. And then a point comes here, and I've mentioned jealousy a few times tonight. I work with this so much, but it's helped me to think of jealousy is like the opposite of rejoicing. It's the opposite flavor in my mind. So instead of taking on the promise of, I will give you every happiness, be the cause of every happiness, and rejoice in every happiness that happens to you, you being all beings everywhere. It's when you see someone get a tiny little happiness, right? They like tiny, I mean, like they have more followers than you. They got the promotion. They got the pat on the back, whatever, that tiny little thing. And you have that pang of, oh, wait, what about me? When's that going to happen for me? Think of that is the opposite of my bodhisattva mindset. And it really takes training. Like that's the one I work with the most. And it's so exciting the day when something amazing happens to someone else, and spontaneously, the first thought that you have is, I am so happy for you. And that happens. And then the next day you'll go back to jealousy, and you keep working at it, but you just need that one proof, right? Of, oh, whoa, my mind changed. I can think of others first. And that would give you the energy to keep going. So that's rejoicing. Is there any? Okay, JJ, here we go. I promise we're getting to dedicating or giving it away. So again, remember, this has to do with how can I make the wish stronger? How can I make things in my life function as the causes, not just for normal happiness, but for an ultimate everlasting happiness? Code word, enlightenment. So they say, what is this? These are the 4 types of dedication. So one is the general dedication. This is kind of what you were speaking to, JJ, of like anything that you do, anytime you meditate, anytime you come to class, anytime you have the karma to enjoy a meal, have the karma to stay alive as you walk across the street. You think in your mind, may I, right? These are all the may I statements that we do. May I see this experience happen for someone else. That's like a general dedication you can apply to anything. Then some more specific ones, they say dedication for the sake of the sick. I think of this, there's not like specific commentary I can look for here. So I'll just tell you how I work with it. This would be like sickness of body, of mind, any sort of sickness. The dedication for the sake of removing hunger and thirst. I think that's particularly applicable as desire realm beings where we eat or we think about eating a lot. These are probably a lot of the thoughts we have throughout the day. So why not make it a part of your practice? So anytime you have a single bite, you remember that that exact bite could have caused anaphylactic shock for someone else. So the fact that you have the karma to enjoy something as delicious or nourishing is something worth dedicating and thinking about other people in that moment. And then this last one is sweet. Here's a way to amp it up, JJ. What if you actually wish that anything anyone else ever wanted came true? And my response to that when I first learned it, I think I even asked it out loud, or I was like, well, what if the things they want are dumb? What if the things they want aren't going to lead them to enlightenment? People want temporary dumb stuff. And my teacher, being the image of love and having a lot of patience, and he responded, why not let, in this ocean and realm of suffering, why not let someone have a tiny moment of happiness? Would it kill you to give them that? And I remember that a lot now. And I think about it often. What if you could wish everyone's, even the normal, boring, dumb wishes come true and then more? So the one type of dedication that's not listed on here, and it's actually my favorite one, is would you be willing to give away your good karma to someone else? Like, could you even surrender all the beautiful seeds in your mind? Like, you could be that selfless. Self being code word for you could be that confident in the lack of self-existence of absolutely everything. So that only in giving absolutely everything away could you receive more than you ever imagined. So that's another type of dedication not on here. And wow, okay, we're right at 9:30. I feel really good about this. I hope this helps, JJ. You could even repeat this as a little silence refrain in your mind, because this is the ultimate dedication. At least this comes in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It's saying, may I give all those things and everything away, and ultimately, may I myself become the medicine, the cure, and the physician for the sick. May I become the food and the drink for the needy, the very things and people that all beings wish for in a temporary and ultimate sense. I don't feel like I need to say anything more about that. I think about it a lot, like it inspires me that it's possible to have this type of mind. And what the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is basically saying, if that's sexy to you, do these things. That's the goal. The body of light and the perfect omniscience and the Buddha paradise, that all comes with it too. But the ultimate gift is that your mind, you could actually have this thought and believe it. For me, that feels like freedom. And that's all I've got for class. Let's dedicate while we have this teaching on dedication in our mind, and then we can unmute and chat and debate and all that stuff. Yeah. So you can think this as we chant this. And JJ, will you do the honors?
Sure. Sati Puki Jukshin Nato Trum Rirabling Shi Ninde Gimpadi Sangye Shindu Mite Uargi Drokun Namdak Shingla Chupasho Iram Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niyatayami Gewadi Kewukum Sunam Yeshe Tsoktsokshing Sunam Yeshe Lejunwe Dampa Kuni Topar Sho.
You're muted, Supriya.
It's for the best. I'm sort of tired of hearing my own voice. I'm sure you all are as well. I was just saying thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to move my mind towards the promises I've made and the thing I think is worth having a mind for. Please unmute yourselves. The chat's open. I'm here if you want to talk. And otherwise, Thursday, we are going to meet. We're going to finish the second half of this course. I'm trying to remember. It's actually on the 6 perfections and the way they relate to each other. So it's beautiful, that second half. And then it really is just a springboard. There's so much more in this text that there's, as I said, 2 full courses, like 3 full courses in total devoted to this, 30 classes on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. We just summarized the first half of 10, right? We're going to summarize the rest on Thursday, and then Rachel's going to take us through more in the new year. But yeah, just unmute yourself. I'd love to hear how things are landing, what's not working, questions, concerns, comments.
Thank you, Sophia.
My pleasure, David.
That last bit was really lovely.
I'm glad. It was hard to talk. I'm not used to crying. Like sometimes it'll just come up. It's a thing, the Dharma thing. It just opens something in my heart, and yeah, things like that, it gets to me.
Congrats.
Thank you. I had to channel Hector's crying too as much as I could. So
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that because I missed you crying, and I would love
I mean,
to
I hide it really well. It just like, it's just an internal thing. Like I just bottle it all up, but I feel it. And it's not actually what Dharma's taught me is to let it, it's another obstacle. Anything I think is binding my heart, to let it rip open. Like I've sort of, because of Hector, associated crying with the ability to open my heart for others or to others. So I actually like, for me, it was like a little thing I was rejoicing in. I was like, great, I'm not so frozen. Like I feel this stuff. And it's the reason I found Dharma in the first place. Like I was very clear on the suffering that comes from thinking about yourself all the time. Like if anyone else has kind of felt that, I was torn down by my own suffering, but almost what was worse than the suffering was the amount of time I spent fixating on that suffering and what I was going to do to get out of it. And I remember just being like disgusted with how selfish I felt. So I loved like when my first class and I came and they were like, the solution to every problem in the world is to destroy selfishness. I was like, cool, that makes sense to me. I could see why that would bring happiness. Yeah.
I had a question. If I haven't seen emptiness directly, and if I give something, like how do I want to get, do I just like, when I give the thing, do I just hold the intention? I hope this is the thing that causes everybody to wake up. Like what does that?
Yep, that would be perfect. That would plant a supercharged seed in your mind, and otherwise review the teaching on the 3 spheres, right? We talked exactly about that, the 3 spheres of giving. So the thing I'm giving is empty of a nature. So it could be the ultimate gift. The person I'm giving it to is empty of a nature. So they could be my perfect teacher in disguise, and I'm giving them an offering, right? And I myself am empty of a nature. So this act could be the spontaneous compassion of a Buddha. So it's exactly that. It's taking what seems normal, what seems like that's the illusion, the appearance, right? And saying, okay, it appears like I'm giving the homeless person a coin, but I'm not going to believe any part of that transaction. In my mind, I'm going to elevate it to the causes for my own enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Yeah.
It's so suspenseful. Everybody's just like staring at the screen.
I have nothing else to say.
I have a one question that came to mind was like wishing that everyone's wishes were fulfilled. What if someone has a wish like adultery? Like I wish I could have that person's wife.
Yeah.
And like I understand like you're wishing that that person's like craving or desire is fulfilled. But also like I wouldn't want to like kind of like consent that. It's like how could I like teach them that's not the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay, Zach, that puppy is like insane. I can't even get words out.
I think you just said it, Mackenzie. Like what I would do in that situation is I wish for you to experience complete physical and mental bliss and to do it without having to hurt someone. That's my real wish for you. And if I see someone committing adultery, I try to connect with, okay, they probably didn't wake up. I mean, I hope people don't wake up and they're like, okay, I'm going to go out and cheat on someone today. Right? Like there's some motivation underneath that. They're craving connection, they're craving intimacy, they're craving, I don't know, excitement, whatever. I hope you get that thing without having to hurt anyone. Right? So it's like, and then if you even go one level deeper, we all have the wish to get enlightened. You can code any desire that you have as the wish to get ultimately happy forever. Whether you have the wisdom to act in that way, to call it that, to create a practice around that wish, that's something else. But what I try to see is in even the most depraved things I see, could the kernel of desire there be the seed for enlightenment? That's really what everyone wants, to be free from suffering forever. So then you could connect it that way.
Can I jump in for a moment?
I was just going to say, someone else jump in.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I want to clarify if I heard correctly. If you see somebody committing adultery, what to do in your mind to purify that? Is that what I heard?
No, it was more about the dedication of like, I wish everyone gets what they want. And so I'm like, well, what if someone's wish is I want to have that person's partner? So it's me thinking that people have these thoughts.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that clarifies a lot. Okay, so that still brings up a little bit like of what I thought I was gonna say, because really at the end, they're not craving that person's partner. They're craving happiness, and they just project that happiness onto that person, regardless of whose partner it is. It's not. That's also a thing. Like, it's not like, oh, you know, this person has a partner and that's why I crave this person. Now, in some cases, that's what it might appear like. But most of the time, what they're really craving is happiness. It just happens to manifest that way. The other thing that I would say is,
thanks for cleaning up my thoughts about people.
Yeah, but well, the other thing is that, and this I'm gonna muddy up your own thoughts, because when we see people committing actions that we think are morally wrong, really the first thought should be not why are they doing that? It should be, why am I seeing this in my world? What am I doing, or what have I done? Maybe I'm not doing it anymore, but it's still an echo of what I did. So how can I purify that from my mind? Not how, or really, like, one of the things that I like so much about Dharma and Buddhism is the fact that everything is my responsibility, not my fault, which is very easy to confuse. And I say that because I used to confuse it. But it is my responsibility, which means I only and I alone have the power to change it. Even seeing somebody committing adultery. What if that person committing adultery is an angel showing you the impurities of your mind?
Thank you.
I saw a question which I like because I've worked with this so much of what am I a good person, or am I just doing these things for validation / to feel better about myself? What do you think about that? Yes, What I would say to that is, you have to work with wherever you're at now. Like in the beginning, I continue to use karma to get what I want, right? Like use karma as like this, I really do. And the thing with that is to feel better about myself, let's say, to your point. And the thing is, I'm going to get every flavor of the result similar to the cause that I planted. So if there's kindness there, if there's any attempt at infusing the wish or emptiness into it, I will get a result that's outside of samsara. That's the cause for my enlightenment. But there also might be a flavor of, cool, I'm following the instructions. Maybe my teacher will notice, maybe my sangha will notice and think I'm a really good practitioner. I will also get the result of that. Right? That's all it's saying. It's just saying you can't pick and choose your results. You're going to get a result that's completely and perfectly correlated to every nuance of the cause. So until the cause is there of doing this for self-validation or to feel good about yourself, basically what I would say is like identify that in your mind as something you want to purify and work on that as like a little purification, and know that the good stuff you do, if there's a flavor of that in there, it's fine. You're going to get those results, but you're also purifying. So over time, it's just going to die away. Right? Like that's the cool stuff about that. That's the really cool thing about honoring karma and karmic technologies. You don't have to struggle so much through life, like to get the things you want or to not have the things you want, because you're working at the root of how things function. So it's like that feeling of like a scab that falls away when it's ready, right? Versus picking at it so that it bleeds. So that's the way I think about then like purification practices. At some point, that's also a seed in your mind, right? The way you see yourself as, I'm someone who needs self-validation. I'm someone who needs to feel like they're always doing the good thing or the right thing. That voice can change. That narrative in your mind can change. It will change ultimately the more you replace it with thoughts about the wish to get it, basically other people, the true nature of things. But till it's there, acknowledge it's going to have a result when you plant seeds with it, and also acknowledge that it can be purified. That is my current answer to that in terms of the way I'm working with it.
Supriya.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add something that Rachel taught me. I think Rachel taught me. I forget. Okay, I had that same, I don't know who added that. Something tells me it was Sydney. Maybe by the way that it was written, I don't know. But so we have these thoughts of like, am I just doing this to like validate, or to like feel good about, doing these good things and stuff like that. But we also have the same negativity bias too. The idea that like, well, it's not enough, so like, it's almost like we have to actually start to trick ourselves into seeing what we could look like as a Buddha in the first place, because that's not natural either. And that also needs to be habituated. And like, we couldn't ever possibly get there if we couldn't like create what that would look or feel, or, what that would look or feel like. So that's like super okay to do. Like, brag big and brag often is what I would say, so that you can like start to believe it a little bit, but not, if you see it as like, what did you say again, Supriya? If you see it as like self-cherishing or like, obviously that's your perception too, so purify that. But also like, you need to start to habituate what that could look like for you. Otherwise there's no way you could ever get there or know when you've gotten there. So that's something that was very helpful to me. Thank you.
I love it. Yeah, it's also, remember that Dalai Lama talks about enlightened self-interest, which is what bodhicitta and working with karma is. It is saying, okay, I want this thing. I'm going to go find a karmic partner and I'm going to give it away. Right? It's enlightened self-interest. It feels like, wow, I can't believe I'm using this thing to get complete happiness and a state of enlightenment. But the state of enlightenment definitionally is the ability to emanate and serve all beings in whatever way they need. Right? So it's like, yes, you're self-interested in a way to get the things you want, but if your motivation for getting those things is to reach enlightenment, then it's the least self-interested thing you could do. So it's like enlightened self-interest. I remember that often.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't interact how I want to because I'm driving. But so I'm really kind of young. I'm only 20, but I have a lot of friends who live in like toxic households, and you know they kind of ask me for advice a lot, but I can't really relate because I can't complain about my household. You know, my mom does for me what she can, and I'm grateful for that. But I guess my question would be like, what would you say to them about protecting their energy in a house that they can't really like, you know, flourish how they want to, I guess, in a way? Like what would, like, from you to me to them, what would you say to them?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And please, anyone else who has thoughts here, unmute. I want this to feel like a conversation. The first thing that comes to mind is anytime, like you know, you mentioned like your situation at home feels pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Anytime that it's feeling particularly good, think about them. Think about those friends. So that's really what dedicating is, right? Like anytime you have a beautiful evening or a moment of safety and security and comfort, in that moment, see if you can think, okay, wherever they are, whatever they're going through, I hope that they could experience this in some form.
Right.
Right? That will have a result, partially because the way that you see them and you see their lives and their scenarios, it's actually coming from you, right? Like you have no idea how they see themselves in their own experience. You know, they might tell you in their own words, but you don't really know what it feels like. So you can only work in the way that you experience them. That's one way to quickly, and it feels really good too, right? Like it's like you collect good things in your life just to give them away. So that's one way to think about it. And then I think, you know, you asked like, what could we say to you to say to them? And it would be to identify and then cut any cycles of reactivity that they might find themselves in.
Okay.
Right. So it's especially hard in like difficult situations or high intensity situations. But the idea is that we get caught responding in a certain way, thinking it's going to give me the thing I want.
Right.
But really, the only thing that my response is going to give me is something in the future that mirrors that response exactly.
Right.
Right. So if it's like someone's yelling at me, I yell back. The exact thing I did in that moment was create a future yelling person in my world. So that's hard. And it's not to say to do that at the cost of protecting yourself. Like it's not saying to tell them to be a doormat and just take it, right? But it's saying when possible, can you not respond with anger, not respond with yelling, try to break that cycle of tit for tat. Because without knowing it, that's the thing that catches us and keeps us spinning in those cycles. Like that would be, you know, that was the advice I needed to hear.
Supriya, I think that's really beautiful. And I would add to that, basically piggybacking on the last thing that she just said, teach them how to meditate if you can.
Yeah, I've been trying to like just basically tell them about their reactions, because I feel like as young as we are, we do go through that time period where we're arguing with our parents nonstop. But the thing that I've learned of just kind of coming to peace with is that you don't have to react to everything. And as much as like as hard as that is to do, a lot of the time like you're trying to get your point across, but you're also draining your energy trying to get someone to understand what they lack in themselves, I guess, in a way. So it all comes down to you. Are you going to put your energy into this, or are you going to just, you know, just kind of just let it fly away? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a temporary thing. Long story short, you're going to forget about this maybe in about 5 years or so.
True. It will definitely have lasting effects, but even those can be mitigated. And the thing that meditation helps with is, the thing that meditation will help you with is it'll give you that gap between having something done to you or said to you and you responding. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that I think will be a huge benefit to them in that kind of a household, because it'll little by little day by day they'll have a 10-second gap before they yell back or do something back. Then they'll have a 12-second gap, and then a 30-second, and then a 2-minute gap, or whatever it is, and then eventually you get to the point that you're not actually responding in the same way. And then on top of that, it'll help you also plant those seeds of teaching other people meditation.
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing I heard someone shared with me one time around when you have like particularly one relationship in your life that's like the really challenging one, whether it's a pattern of anger or whatever it is, that it might be really hard to start there.
Yeah.
And like instead to find like a smaller version of that elsewhere in your life, like maybe somebody who occasionally gets you upset, or like you're not, like your parents are really hard, and not that you shouldn't work on that, but sometimes like starting out with a little bit of an easier relationship to like really work on can like give you some momentum